A woman scorned. A secret uncovered. And a night that ended in flames. Jamila was the perfect wife, the kind who held her marriage together no matter the cost. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming. Lies. Late nights. Whispers of betrayal. And then, one fateful evening, she found the truth staring back at her from the glow of a phone screen. What she did next would shock an entire community. A husband's final screams. A little girl left in the ashes. And a courtroom filled with the echoes of a crime fueled by heartbreak and rage. What drives a person to the edge of madness? How does love turn to fury in an instant? This is the chilling true crime story of Jamila and Rashawn, a story of deception, vengeance, and irreversible consequences. Before we dive into this harrowing case, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories of love, lies, betrayal and deception. Jamila had always believed in the sanctity of marriage. Raised in a strict but loving household, she was taught that a wife's duty was to nurture, to support, to forgive. And so she did. From the moment she married Rashawn, she poured every ounce of herself into building a home, a future, a love that could withstand any storm. When he lost his job, twice, she picked up extra shifts at the hospital to keep their bills paid. When he came home late, reeking of cheap cologne and excuses, she swallowed the lump in her throat and reminded herself that men sometimes strayed but always came back to where they truly belonged. And when the doubts crept in, those whispers in the back of her mind telling her something wasn't right, she silenced them with the same stubborn devotion that had kept her by Rashawn's side for 8 long years. She was not a weak woman. She had never been. But love, she realized too late, had made her blind. Rashawn was the type of man who could charm anyone. He had a way with words, an effortless swagger that made people trust him, admire him. He was the guy who always had a joke ready, the man who could turn a room full of tension into laughter with a single grin. And for a while, Jamila believed she was the luckiest woman in the world to have him. But Rashawn had secrets. While Jamila worked tirelessly to hold their home together, Rashawn lived a double life, one that stretched across years, across multiple women, across state lines. He was a master at juggling lies, spinning stories so effortlessly that even he started believing them. There were women who thought they were the only ones, children who bore his features but never his last name. He was careful, meticulous even, ensuring that no one ever connected the dots. And Jamila, his devoted wife, never suspected a thing. Or maybe, deep down, she did. Maybe she had always known but chose not to see. To the outside world, they were the picture of a normal couple, imperfect, sure, but committed. They attended family barbecues together, posed for holiday pictures with their daughter, Amira, and exchanged playful banter at gatherings that made people believe they were solid. Rashawn's family adored Jamila, praising her for being a good wife, a strong woman who stood by her husband no matter what. Her friends envied her stability, the way Rashawn still put his arm around her waist when they walked into a room. No one questioned the late nights, the hushed arguments, the way Jamila sometimes looked through Rashawn instead of at him. And then there was Amira, their 8-year-old daughter, the light of their lives. Bright, curious, and full of energy, she idolized her father. To her, Rashawn was a hero, the dad who lifted her onto his shoulders at the fair, who tickled her until she couldn't breathe from laughter. Jamila shielded her from everything, ensuring that no matter what happened behind closed doors, Amira only saw the good. She refused to let her daughter grow up in a broken home, believing that keeping the family together was the best gift she could give her. But the cracks were there, deepening with every lie Rashawn told, every truth Jamila ignored. And one night, those cracks would shatter completely, leaving behind nothing but smoke, ash, and a little girl who would never look at her parents the same way again. Jamila never went through Rashawn's phone. It wasn't because she trusted him, she had stopped feeling that kind of security years ago. It was because she knew that if she ever looked, if she ever dared to dig, she would find something she wasn't ready to face. So she avoided it. She let herself believe that what she didn't know couldn't hurt her. But that evening was different. Rashawn had just come home from another boys' night out. He barely acknowledged her as he tossed his keys on the counter and headed straight for the bathroom. His phone, usually glued to his hand, sat face up on the nightstand, screen still glowing from an unread message. Jamila hadn't planned to look. She really hadn't. But the notification caught her eye. "Baby, you still coming tomorrow? Kamari misses you." Her stomach clenched. Her hands moved before she could think. One tap on the screen, and the dam burst. Message after message. Woman after woman. Truth after devastating truth. There was Tiana, the woman from Houston. She and Rashawn had been involved for nearly 5 years, overlapping with the majority of Jamila's marriage. Their son, Kamari, was 4, conceived during one of Rashawn's supposed work trips. From the messages, Jamila gathered that Rashawn visited them at least once a month, playing house, playing father. Tiana spoke like a woman who believed she was the only one. She even had pictures, selfies of Rashawn in her bed, videos of him pushing Kamari on a swing. Jamila's hands trembled as she scrolled. Then came Alicia, from Baton Rouge. Unlike Tiana, Alicia wasn't delusional. She knew about Rashawn's wife but didn't care. She had her own life, her own career, and she made it clear that their relationship was built on convenience. They had 2 children together, twin girls, Layla and Leilani, 6 years old. The messages showed a transactional nature, Alicia demanding money, Rashawn making excuses, Alicia threatening to take him to court. Jamila's breath hitched as she kept reading. Then there was Monique, the one who lived just 2 cities over. Monique was different. Her daughter, Zuri, was 8 years old, the same age as Amira. She was Rashawn's first child, the one that predated his entire marriage to Jamila. And yet, he had never told her. Not once. He had an entire firstborn child that he had kept hidden for nearly a decade. And from the messages, it was clear that Monique wasn't even a secret. His family knew. His mother knew. His sisters knew. And Jamila? She was the fool, the only one left in the dark. Tears blurred her vision, but she couldn't stop. And then there was Shayla, the newest one. The one who just had a baby 2 months ago. Rashawn's son, Cairo, was still an infant, his little face staring up from a picture Shayla had sent just days ago. "He looks just like you," she had written. "When you coming to see him?" Jamila let out a strangled sob. 6 children. 4 different women. How? The weight of it crushed her, knocking the breath from her lungs. Rashawn hadn't just cheated, he had built entire lives with other women. He had played house, father, lover, all while coming home to her, kissing her goodnight, holding their daughter in his arms as if she was his world. Jamila felt like she was drowning. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded violently in her chest, her pulse deafening in her ears. And then just like that the pain turned to rage. A white-hot, all-consuming rage. Years of sacrifices, of forgiveness, of swallowing her suspicions to keep her family intact, all for nothing. While she had spent nights alone, worried sick, wondering if she wasn't enough, he had been out creating families with other women. Her hands clenched into fists. She had wasted 8 years of her life on a fraud. Jamila's vision went red as she heard the shower turn off, the water shutting off like the last bit of patience she had left. Rashawn stepped out of the bathroom, wiping his face with a towel, completely unaware that his world was about to burn. Rashawn stepped out of the bathroom, his body glistening with beads of water, steam rolling off his skin as he towel-dried his hair. He glanced at Jamila, his usual cocky smirk tugging at his lips, but something in her expression made it falter. She was standing too still. Her eyes, cold, unreadable. "You good?" he asked, voice casual, like he hadn't just spent his day at God knows where. Like he hadn't left his phone unlocked with the confessions of his secret lives on full display. Jamila didn't answer. She only stared. Rashawn exhaled, running the towel over his chest. "Damn, you mad at me or something?" Her head tilted slightly, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "Or something," she murmured. He scoffed, shaking his head, about to brush past her until she moved. Not fast, not aggressive. Just smooth, calculated steps toward the kitchen. Rashawn barely noticed. He sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the world-shattering rage that had settled inside his wife like a dormant volcano, now rumbling awake. Jamila's hands didn't shake as she reached into the cabinet under the sink, fingers wrapping around the cool metal canister of lighter fluid. She had bought it months ago for their backyard fire pit, never used it. A waste, until now. She took the matches from the drawer, the little red box feeling heavier than it should. Her breathing slowed as she turned back toward the bedroom. Rashawn was still distracted, head down, tapping away at his phone. Maybe texting one of them, one of his many, many women. Tiana, who thought she was the only one. Alicia, who used him for child support. Monique, the one who had been there all along. Shayla, the one who had just birthed his 6th child. 6 children. 4 women. Jamila's grip tightened. She stepped forward. Rashawn looked up just as the first splash of lighter fluid hit his bare chest. He jerked back, eyes narrowing in confusion. What the fuck? Another splash. His stomach. His arms. His thighs. The scent filled the room, sharp, chemical, unmistakable. What the hell are you doing? Rashawn pushed off the bed, backing up, looking down at his glistening, soaked skin. He sniffed, realization creeping in. Jamila. Her voice was eerily calm. You ever wonder what it feels like to burn? His breath hitched. Baby, hold on, just talk to me. Jamila shook her head, her lips curling into something between a grin and a grimace. Talk. Like how you talked to Tiana. Told her she was the only one. Rashawn paled. She took another step. Or should I talk to Alicia? The one you got pregnant twice while laying in my bed at night? Jamila. Or what about Monique? She continued, voice rising, years of betrayal crashing through her. The one whose daughter is the same age as Amira. The one your whole family knew about except me. Rashawn's chest heaved. Just stop. You're mad, I get it, but we can talk about this. Please, baby. She laughed. And then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the matchbox. Rashawn's eyes widened. Wait. She struck a match. The tiny flame danced, casting flickering light onto her expression, one of pure, unrelenting vengeance. She dropped it. The second the flame met his gasoline-soaked skin, the fire roared to life. Rashawn's scream tore through the house, a sound so primal, so agonizing, it sent a chill down Jamila's spine. He stumbled backward, clawing at his chest, his arms, his face, but the fire spread fast. Too fast. The flames devoured him, crawling up his torso, licking at his beard, turning him into a living torch. He thrashed wildly, knocking over the nightstand, the lamp crashing to the floor, glass shattering. His shrieks, piercing, raw, filled the air as the fire consumed him. He turned, trying to run, but his legs buckled, sending him sprawling onto the carpet. The flames caught the fabric, spreading, turning the bedroom into hell on earth. Jamila didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink as she watched the man she had loved, the man who had betrayed her in ways she couldn't fathom, burn alive. And for the first time in years, she felt free. The smell of burning flesh clung to the air, thick and suffocating, curling into the walls, seeping into the very bones of the apartment. Smoke billowed from the bedroom, curling out of the shattered window like a black, writhing ghost. The echoes of Rashawn's scream still seemed to linger, bouncing off the charred walls, swallowed by the crackling flames that had finally begun to die down. Outside, the chaos was deafening. Neighbors had gathered in the hallway, their panicked voices blending into a frantic chorus of shock and confusion. Some had tried to force their way in when they first heard the screams, banging on the door, kicking at it, but the lock held firm. Others had called 911, their frantic voices barely coherent as they tried to explain that someone was burning alive inside apartment 3B. By the time the firefighters arrived, it was too late. The bedroom was nothing but blackened ruin. The bed, the curtains, the carpet, all reduced to ash. And in the center of it all, the twisted, smoldering remains of what was once Rashawn Davis lay curled in a grotesque fetal position. His skin had melted away in places, exposing raw, cooked muscle, his fingers frozen in a claw-like grasp, as if still reaching for help that never came. His face, unrecognizable. One of the firefighters gagged. Another turned away, muttering, "Jesus Christ," under his breath. The cops arrived moments later, stepping over the splintered doorframe, guns drawn, only to find Jamila sitting motionless on the couch. She was pristine. Untouched by the fire, by the destruction. Her hands rested neatly in her lap, her gaze blank, as if she were lost in a trance. For a moment, they thought she was in shock, maybe she had tried to save him, maybe she had barely escaped the flames herself. But then one of the officers took a slow step forward, the floor creaking beneath his boots, and Jamila lifted her head, meeting his eyes. She smiled. Not a forced, nervous smile. Not the broken, dazed smile of someone who had just witnessed an unimaginable tragedy. But something else entirely. "Ma'am." The officer hesitated, the words catching in his throat. "What happened here?" Jamila tilted her head slightly, her smile widening, but she said nothing. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Another officer stepped closer, eyes flicking toward the blackened doorway where Rashawn's remains still smoldered. "Ma'am, did you?" A small chuckle escaped her lips. It was soft at first, barely audible. Then it grew. Low and throaty, like something bubbling up from deep within her soul. The officer closest to her flinched. "What the hell is so funny?" Jamila slowly leaned back into the couch, crossing one leg over the other. She exhaled, a slow, satisfied sigh, as if she had just finished the best meal of her life. And then she whispered, "He deserved it." The room went dead silent. The officers exchanged uneasy glances before one of them finally stepped forward, reaching for his cuffs. "Jamila Davis, you're under arrest for." She lifted her wrists before he even finished. Offered them up like a gift. No struggle. No tears. No regrets. As they snapped the cuffs around her wrists and hauled her to her feet, she turned her head slightly, catching a final glimpse of the charred remains in the bedroom. Her lips parted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Rot in hell, Rashawn." And as they led her out the door, past the horrified stares of her neighbors, past the murmuring firefighters, past the flashing red and blue lights that painted the street in a chaotic glow, Jamila Davis laughed. 8-year-old Amira stepped off the school bus, her backpack bouncing against her small shoulders as she skipped toward the apartment complex. It had been a normal day, math class was boring, lunch was okay, and she had laughed with her best friend, Malia, about a silly TikTok dance they tried at recess. She couldn't wait to get home. Mommy would be in the kitchen, probably making one of her favorite snacks, apple slices with peanut butter. Maybe Daddy would be home early too. He'd promised they'd go to the park this weekend. Maybe she could ask him again. But as she got closer to her street, something felt wrong. Amira slowed down. The usual hum of the neighborhood, cars pulling into driveways, kids playing, music drifting from open windows, was missing. Instead, there was a crowd. People huddled together, their faces tense, their eyes locked on her apartment complex. Then she heard the sirens. Red and blue lights flashed across the pavement. Police cars. Fire trucks. A stretcher sitting empty on the curb. Her little heart started pounding. Her feet moved faster, almost running now. And then she saw her. Mommy. Jamila stood near a police car, her hands behind her back. Amira blinked. What? The silver handcuffs glinted under the flashing lights. No. That didn't make sense. Mommy wasn't bad. Mommy didn't get in trouble. Mommy? Her voice was soft, unsure. Jamila didn't turn. Mommy. This time, her mother's head moved slightly, her dark eyes locking onto Amira's. But there was no warmth. No comfort. Just a blank stare, as if she wasn't really there at all. Amira's breath hitched. She turned to look at the building. And then she saw it. The front door was gone, burned. The walls blackened, charred beyond recognition. A heavy, sickening smell hung in the air. Her stomach twisted. And then the body. A blackened, twisted figure lay in the wreckage. Arms curled in a way they shouldn't be, mouth open in a scream that would never end. Daddy. Amira froze. Her chest tightened. She tried to breathe, but the air felt too thick. No. No, 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 no. Her little hands clenched. Her vision blurred. A cold hand grabbed her arm. Don't look, a voice whispered. Mrs. Latrice. Their neighbor. Come on, baby. Don't look. But it was too late. The image was already burned into her mind. She tried to scream, but nothing came out. Her knees buckled. Everything spun. And as her world collapsed, the last thing she saw was her mother being led into the police car, without a single tear in her eyes. Then the trial came, the courtroom was silent as the judge prepared to deliver the sentence. Every seat was filled, journalists scribbling in notepads, spectators leaning forward, and Rashawn's grieving family gripping each other's hands. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that made breathing feel like a conscious effort. Jamila sat motionless at the defense table, her expression unreadable. Her long, dark hair had been pulled back into a simple bun, and the orange jumpsuit she wore seemed almost unnatural on her. But there was no remorse in her eyes. No fear. Just the same eerie calm she had carried since the night of the fire. The prosecution had painted her as a calculated murderer, a woman who had planned this from the moment she discovered Rashawn's betrayal. The defense had argued temporary insanity, pleading for the court to understand the sheer weight of her devastation. But the jury had seen past the excuses. 3 hours of deliberation. That was. Her small hands clenched into fists, her body trembling as silent tears ran down her face. Jamila turned, her gaze meeting her daughter's. For the first time, a flicker of something pain, regret, or maybe just realization passed through her eyes. But it was gone in an instant. Rashawn's mother let out a wail from across the room, her grief raw and unforgiving. His siblings shook their heads, some whispering curses under their breath. Jamila rose to her feet as the bailiff approached. As the cold steel of the handcuffs locked around her wrists, she glanced once more at the courtroom, taking in the faces of the people who had once been a part of her life. Then, she did something that sent chills through everyone. She smirked. Not a smile. Not relief. A smirk. As if she had won. As if she had no regrets. And as she was led away, Amira whispered the only word that had been running through her head since the night she lost everything. Mom, why? Love, trust, and betrayal, 3 forces powerful enough to shape destinies or destroy them entirely. Jamila Carter was once a devoted wife, a woman who stood by her husband through every hardship, every indiscretion. But when the truth surfaced, 6 children, 4 women, a lifetime of deception, something inside her shattered beyond repair. Her story is one of heartbreak turned to fury, of sacrifice turned to destruction. The night Rashawn burned, was it the final act of a scorned woman seeking justice? Or was it the unforgivable crime of someone who let rage consume her whole? The courtroom delivered its judgment, but what do you think? Was Jamila justified in her revenge? Should Rashawn have been more honest about his double life? Could this tragedy have been avoided? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this case left you speechless, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel where the darkest tales of love, lies, and betrayal come to light.